Hello, today is Monday, the 26th of October, and we'll be looking at the chapter 26 of Acts of the Apostles. In the 26th chapter, the scene hasn't changed since the last chapter. It's now Paul's chance to defend himself in front of King Agrippa. And it says, stretching out his hand. I don't know if he was like this kind of gesture or this kind of gesture or like what. He stretched out his hand though at some point and then begins to defend himself. Like apologetics, he goes back into what King Agrippa would know, being in the line of the Herods. He says, you know me, you know the laws that I follow, I know the Torah, I know the rules. And he says, I'm a Pharisee. That's how I lived my life. And then he says, I stand here accused of believing in the resurrection of the dead. And then he goes into his past history and how he used to, as a Pharisee, persecute the Christians, the followers of the way. And that on one of those aggressive persecutions, he was traveling. The chief priests had sent him to travel to Damascus to persecute Christians there. And on his way, he was converted. He tells that conversion story that we read in the beginning of the book of Acts. And then he says how he began to be obedient to the vision he received on the road to Damascus. Even when he arrived in Damascus, he proclaimed the message that he had received from the vision. He completely did a 180 and started proclaiming the gospel. He began, he said his life has been consistently pursued by the Jewish authorities. And he says, they tried to hash plots to have me killed or imprison me and then kill me. And so he's like, my life is always up for grabs. And then he tells the story of Jesus. And as he's saying all these things, it kind of begins to look like, at least to them, that he is trying to convert the ones that he's speaking to. He's trying to convert them, not just like defend himself. He is trying to convert them. And so Festus interjects, Paul, you're out of your mind. Remember Festus? He's the governor. He's there too. And Paul's like, no, I'm not out of my mind. I have my mind. I've been converted. This is my faith. This is what I'm supposed to do with it. This is my mission. And King Agrippa says, are you so quickly persuading me to become a Christian? So he's getting the hint, like, are you just here witnessing to me? Like, are you trying to get me to be persuaded of this stuff that you're talking about? And Paul's like, not in so many words, but he says, yes. And what he really says, that at the heart of what he says is wonderful. And this is what it is. And it's found in verse 29. It's the second half of verse 29. He says this, I pray that all may become such as I am, except for these chains. So yes, this message is for you, Agrippa. It's for you, Festus. It's for everyone in the hearing. And he says something about it being earlier in the chapter, actually in verse 22, where he says about being for great and small, the people who are of great consequence and the ones that aren't, all included in this message. I want you all to hear this. I pray that all may become such as I am, except for these chains. Like, he doesn't want everyone to be held in fetters like he is as a prisoner, but he wants everyone to have the inner freedom that he experiences through Jesus Christ. I pray that all may become as I am, except for these chains. I just can see it played out in my mind's eye of him saying, I pray that all will become such as I am, except for these chains. And he holds up the chains. I think it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And so the very end of the chapter is just that um, the king got up, and the governor and Bernice, and they were leaving, and they were just discussing it on their own, sort of like as they were walking out. He's not guilty of anything. We can't, he doesn't deserve death or imprisonment, but since he's appealed to the governor or the emperor, because he's appealed to the emperor, they have to keep him and let this whole process play out. But otherwise, they'd let him go. So this is interesting. They just they don't find any fault with Paul. And I honestly, how disarming is it to say, you're asking me all these questions, but ultimately this is my mission, that you become such that I am, except for these chains. It's love. It's love for people that are trying to persecute you. It's amazing love. It's unfathomable. And that's why the faith grew. Because people who were going out and talking about what it means to be a Christian or the followers of Jesus were loving people, truly putting them first. And because the identification with putting people first is putting Christ first. And it's the same back and forth. And Paul exemplified that. Here's the phrase. I'm going to say it one more time. I'm going to stitch this on a pillow. I pray that all may become such that I am, except for these chains. Are you trying to make me a Christian, Paul? This is King Agrippa, right? Are you trying to make me a Christian, Paul? He's like, yeah, I pray that all, not just you, everybody who's listening, may become such that I am, except for these chains. Love him. This is Paul at his finest. It's best. And that's the gravity of his message. So I hope you have a beautiful day. Carry this with you. Amen.